1, 2, 3, 4.
And hello there, all you Stay Tuners. Welcome back to another episode of Stay Tuned Sports. This is your good friend Jimbo back again. Only did one episode last week. Had some family obligations to deal with, but we're back this week. Well, I'm back today. Most likely will be me tomorrow. I'm trying to get a special guest, hopefully tomorrow. But a lot to talk about. We have the playoffs hockey, which we'll probably talk about tomorrow, but because we always do Thursdays as our fight week episode, you know, for all you MMA boxing fans out there. I'm going to recap the bare knuckle fighting pay-per-view. Even though it was 2 weeks ago, it was such a great pay-per-view that you still have to talk about 2 weeks later. I mean, some of the fights that came out of there were just awesome, just very, very entertaining. Probably one of the best pay-per-views I've seen in a long time, and definitely probably the best that they put on so far. So we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on a lot of UFC stuff. Yeah, the Dustin Poirier winning the interim title over Max Holloway this past weekend. We have another fight night coming up Saturday. So much to talk about. But before we get into the show, head over to Twitter. Follow me at Jimbo ST Sports. Follow the show at ST Sports Podcast. Don't follow Shoulders at Shoulders_bro. Or bra, something like that. He's been, and also, he's been helping out a lot with the YouTube channel, trying to get subscribers. So head over to YouTube as well and subscribe to it. I'm slowly putting some of the past episodes that we've had onto there as well. So if it's easier for you guys to get onto YouTube, you know, before you know it, you're going to be able to listen to all the past shows as well. As far as where you could hear us other than YouTube, you could go to iTunes, TuneIn, Spotify. You know, we tell you every week, all the major ones out there, even Stitcher and Spreaker, I think we're on as well. So you can find us pretty much anywhere to listen to us. So jumping right into it, BKFC 5 was 2 weeks ago, and let me tell you, going into it, I thought it was going to be a entertaining pay-per-view, and boy did it deliver. There was a lot of storylines leading up to it, a lot of new signees debuting, a new title fight between Christian Furier and Britain Hart for the American Women's Featherweight title, which was slightly confusing to me, but I did a little bit of investigating, and I'll kind of clarify that with the whole Beck Rawlings belt. He has heavyweights, you had two lightweight tournament semifinal matches, and you had the president of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship kind of have to step in and take some money away from a fighter. But getting into it, you know, the fight card started off with Harris Stevenson versus Caleb Harris. You know, for a opening fight, definitely entertaining. Ended up in a split decision for Harris Stevenson. From what I remember, it was kind of back and forth. You know, typical filling out process in the first round for both fighters, you know, the jab, stuff like that. But Harris Stevenson pulled out the win with a split decision. Then it came on to Johnny Bedford versus Abdel Velasquez in the lightweight tournament semifinal, which Johnny Bedford is a former UFC fighter and Bellator, I believe, also. And going into it, I stated 3 weeks ago, leading up to the pay-per-view, that I had Bedford because he has power, he's quick, he has some good defense, and how this fight went down was the first round, he was doing more trash talking than actually connecting with punches and stuff like that. And Velasquez, I think I gave Velasquez the first round because seemed like he was pressuring more, seemed like he was connecting a little bit more, whereas Bedford was trying to kind of goat him into being lazy and trying to connect. Second round came, and so did the third, and Bedford came on and ended up knocking him down a couple times, knocking Velasquez down a couple times, and to the point where Velasquez verbally, said, I'm done. I can't go on. And it was a good fight. It was an entertaining fight. But by the time halfway through the second started, you could see Velasquez was losing his not necessarily his game plan, but couldn't figure out how to connect on Bedford. He was just too quick for him. And the punches that Bedford was connecting with was taking the toll on Velasquez. And, maybe Velasquez had that live to fight another day type thinking there. So Bedford moved on to the lightweight final, who he will be facing Reggie Barnett, which we will get into that fight in a few minutes here. After Bedford, it came to Isaac Valley Flag versus Randy Hedrick, which I think it was a heavyweight because they were kind of bigger guys. Flag looked like a dude that you would meet at the corner bar down the street. Not the sexiest looking guy, very flabby. Kind of looks like me on a Saturday when I'm drinking and stuff like that, but he ended up defeating Randy Hedrick via TKO in the third round. And with this one, Randy Hedrick actually broke his hand. This was another match where he told the ref he just couldn't go on. When he got knocked down, obviously, he was hurt a little bit, but he was hurt. He recovered enough that he could stand up. But you could see he was more worried about his hand. He looked at the ref, told the ref, "I'm pretty sure I broke my hand," and the ref did the right thing of stopping the fight, giving Flag the win. Now, same thing with this fight. It looked like the first round, Hedrick kind of found his range, was connecting a little bit, and Flag was a here and there type, hitting with the punches. And it was still a good fight. I know a lot of fans out there don't like the little quote unquote patty cake fielding out process, which UFC, MMA, boxing, all that stuff, it's a chess match. You gotta think about what your opponent might be doing next, and that's why they do the jabs to get the range. But unfortunately for Hedrick, he broke his hand. Flag started to connect in the second and obviously the third round. Put Hedrick down. Got to the point where Hedrick quit, verbally saying that he can't go on. Then came a fight that I thought would be one of the most entertaining ones on this pay-per-view. Reggie Barnett versus Rusty Crowder in a lightweight semifinal match. Reggie Barnett, very good boxer, very quick. Rusty Crowder obviously had to do something good to get to the semifinals, and all he did was run. He put his running shoes on like Forrest Gump did and ran across America. That's all he freaking did. And it was getting aggravating. You could see Reggie Barnett was getting aggravated with it. But for how much Rusty Crowder was running, Barnett was still landing some punches. He was cutting off the ring enough to gained control, of the rounds. He was the aggressor with connecting with the punches. And ultimately, this went to a decision, which went to Reggie Barnett. Even after the fight was over, they interviewed Reggie, and he even said, it was hard to do the game plan because all Rusty Crowder did was run. And for seeing how much he ran, if I was Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, I'd release this guy. Like, you're in a combat sport, not just bare knuckle, not just MMA. You're in a combat sport. I understand you want to be a counter puncher, but when you're constantly backpedaling, he literally was throwing like one punch, and it would do 2 laps around the ring before he throws another punch. Now these are 2-3 minute rounds. How are you gonna win? You're looking like the person on the defense. So obviously the other guy, even if he doesn't land any punches, is going to get points for being the aggressor. So I don't understand what his thinking was here, and ended up losing the match by decision. Reggie Barnett moves on to the lightweight tournament, or the final for the lightweights, which, like I said, he's going to be fighting Johnny Bedford. And I am telling you, I thought the Sam Shoemaker heavyweight final was going to be very entertaining, and as far as knockouts, and that didn't live up to my hype. If this don't live up to the hype, I'm going to be very disappointed. I think this would have the potential to ruin the whole pay-per-view overall, because this could be the Forrest Griffin Stephan Bonner fight that BKFC needs to really, really take it to the next step. I mean, they're doing a really good job as far as production now. The arena, or wherever they have this, the stadium, whichever, looked very full. So they're starting to get the fans to show up. And again, I'm not saying they're taking the UFC over this year or anything like that, but they're doing it right. They're taking their time, and they're slowly bringing this new sport to the front row for all the fans. And this fight between Reggie Barnett and Johnny Bedford could really take it to the next level. And as far as me and my fiance, we've watched every pay-per-view, I believe it was, except for one, because I was hanging out with our buddy King a couple months ago, so she couldn't see it. But I'm pretty sure she would take Johnny Bedford because she likes Bedford over Barnett. I may take Barnett. Barnett has the speed. Bedford has the power. Barnett has a little bit of power. But speed kills, So I think Barnett is going to be my pick as of right now. We will see when that fight gets announced. Hasn't been announced yet when it will be. There's only like 2 or 3 fights that have been announced for the next pay-per-view, which is Artem Lobov versus Paulie Malignaggi, or however you say his name. The little Chihuahua sounding, I'll kill you, motherfucker. Yeah, that's when I heard that video, I just want to punch him. But after Barnett and the Rusty Crowder fight, before the next fight, the ring announcer said, "Can I have your attention, please? The president of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship has something to say." Gets on the mic, David Feldman says, Mississippi, are you having a good time? Obviously the crowd, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And he goes on to say along the lines of, us here at Bare Knuckle want to always put on entertaining fights, and we're hoping in the future this is what we could keep doing, and this and that, the other thing. Unfortunately, that last fight between Reggie Barnett and Rusty Crowder was not that. And because Rusty Crowder decided to run the whole match, he has given up half his purse to Reggie Barnett. Now, first thing that popped out of my mouth was, how is that legal? Because I'm assuming, whether it's UFC, Bellator, bare knuckle, I'm assuming when you sign a contract, you get money to show up, $5,000, $50,000, whatever it would be. And then you would get money if you win. So I just don't understand how it's legal that he could take that money away. And which, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was the right move as far as the president, because Rusty Crowder, he didn't fight, he ran. He was more like looking like he was want to race Usain Bolt than fight Reggie Barnett. But I'm curious to see if will this hold up, or did he say, David Feldman tell Rusty Crowder, listen, I'm taking half of your purse. You try to fight this, I'm kicking you out of the league, or the company. So that was a big statement. Let's see how this all plays out. Next pay-per-view is in June. I think it's like June 22nd or so. But then once he got done talking, there was Chase Sherman versus my boy, Sam Shoemaker. Which, by the way, Sam, thanks for liking all my tweets. I always got your back, buddy. And this, again, was another entertaining fight. Chase Sherman was definitely the young buck. When you looked at these two, Sam Shoemaker was that hillbilly that you see come out of the woods that you don't want to mess with. In my article that I wrote for Belly Up Sports, if you guys head over there, bellyupsports.com, there's a lot of articles there from other people, merchandise there as well. You guys might be interested. But you can also find the article that I wrote previewing this. I was hoping for a new knockout for Sam Shoemaker. His first fight from the first pay-per-view, he knocked out the dude in like 9 seconds or whatever it was. Next fight, I believe he won by decision. Very slow, just chugging along type match. Lost the next match by decision. Won the last one by decision, which was close though. It was like a 49-48 type decision. So I was hoping coming into this, he could get back into a decisive win. Like, without a doubt, it was his win. Just the opposite happened. It was declared a split draw. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch, because the positives I take out of this for Shoemaker was he had a lot better defense. He had more of a jab. He wasn't going for that haymaker, which the jab will set that up. And in the beginning, he was quicker than the young buck. That jab was working until Sherman, figured it out a little bit. So he started doing his little bit of jab, cutting the ring off a little bit. But in the end, it was still a good match. Ended up in a split draw. If I was David Fettleman, I would play this back. I would have this be another Tony Lopez, Joey Beltran from the first pay-per-view, and I believe it was the last pay-per-view. Both matches were pretty good. After those guys, we had Christine Ferretti versus Britain Hart for the American Women's Featherweight title. Excuse me while I take a drink of my Miller Lite, since I'm on a 3-day weekend here for Easter holidays, which for our listeners, happy holidays. Now, I was a little confused when I first saw this. I thought this was more of a tournament type deal, and it ended up not being. Kristen Ferretti defeated Britain Hart by doctor stoppage, which wasn't a doctor stoppage. What happened was Christine was just picking her apart. I had Hart going as the winner because she fought Beck Rollins. She didn't win, but I'll tell you what, she took a lot of good shots, and she gave some good shots too. And I thought she would connect a few times to Christine and possibly even knock her out. Unfortunately for Hart, Christine, just unloaded, a couple 2-3 combos or whatever, and the final combo just literally blew Hart's eye up. The eyeball was bloody, not to be gross. Eyeball was bloody. The eyelid it looked like a blood vessel busted or something. Ref called timeout, took her over to her corner. For all you UFC guys, the cut man Stitch was in her corner. Was trying to fix it. Finally looked at the ref, said, get the doctor in here. Doctor came in, looked at it, can you keep going? Hart, obviously as a fighter, he's gonna say, yeah. You're fighting for a championship here. Why would you say no? Leave it all out there. So Hart said, yeah, I could go. Doctor looked at the ref, said, yeah, she could go. And Stitch was like, looked right at the ref and was like, no, she can't. And looked right at the doctor and was like, from what I was trying to read lips, it's not, it wasn't clarified or anything, but the way I seen it was Stitch looked at the doctor and was like, what are you doing? She can't go on. And luckily, the ref called the match. Fortunately, Hart lost. Kristen Ferreira is the new American Women's Featherweight Champion, which should set up a way I look as champ versus champ with Beck Rollins. Beck Rollins is the world women's featherweight title holder. Now, watching Kristen Ferreira, and if I'm saying her name wrong, I apologize. I'm terrible with names. But this could be a very, very good fight, and Beck Rollins has been impressive over her fights, but this could be the fight she loses. Christine is very quick and obviously powerful enough to stop fighters. Beck Rollins, I think she's 3 or 4 fights in, has only stopped maybe 2 fighters. I know the first fight she stopped. Every other one went to a decision. So I'm curious to see, and I just saw the other day. No, I know I just saw, or I just said that this could be set up to be a champ versus champ. I don't think that's what they're aiming for, BKFC, because I saw Beck Rollins said that she had a contract signed for one of the Sorrento sisters, I believe, from boxing. So they might be, bringing more females in to build up that division a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. I think Beck said July 5th. So it might be a June pay-per-view and then a July 5th pay-per-view. But, we will see how that goes. Then the co-main event was Chris Lieben versus Justin Baseman. Again, in my article I wrote, I said, when Chris Lieben was in UFC, he was my boy. I loved how he fought. He's a brawler, and he could take a punch. I still remember the one fight. I forget who he was fighting, but he was out on his feet. The dude he was fighting just landed 5-6 different punches and just knocked him out on his feet, and he came out walking like a goddamn zombie and knocked the guy out. Typical Chris Lieben knockout, just lights out. And I said, it's been years since we've seen a Chris Lieben knockout like that. And before he joined BKFC, he was fighting for that one promotion that basically folded, didn't pay their fighters or anything, and knocked out a former UFC fighter. Oh my God, what was his name? I forget his name now, but I think it was like a former UFC champion back in the day. And sure enough, bell rings, Lieben and Baseman come out to the center of the ring and just start throwing. Lieben connects once, rocks Baseman, connects again, lights out. He has the second fastest knockout in BKFC history, 25 seconds it took him. And I'll tell you what, he looked like the Chris Lieben of old in UFC. And this is why I think this is right up his alleyway as far as a sport. He doesn't have to worry about leg kicks, doesn't have to worry about takedowns, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, all that. All he has to worry about is boxing. He always had the hands. So this is right up his alleyway. And I believe his next fight may be in June as well. They're setting up a fight for him. I'm not sure if he has the opponent yet, but I know they said that they're hoping for June for him. And I mean, 25 seconds, he doesn't have a scratch on him, so he could turn around and probably fight next week if he wanted to. But that fight came on roughly about 11:30 or so at night, and when he knocked out Baseman, I lost my shit. I mean, I'm surprised I didn't wake up my kids. Going on to the main event was the other new signee, Artem Lobov versus Jason Knight. I felt a little bad for Jason Knight going into this match because all people want to talk about was Lobov versus Paulie Malignaggi. And the video that popped up earlier in the week that they had a little scuffle, this and that. I mean, I was going for Lobov just because Jason Knight wasn't that great of a fighter in UFC. But again, this fight, oh my God. Bell rang, they just started throwing. And that's pretty much how it went for 5 rounds. Fourth round came, I thought Lobov was done. It looked like he was gassed. Jason Knight, he was just loving it. He was feeling it. The first 2 rounds I gave Lobov. Third one and the fourth I gave Knight because towards the end of the round he came on and I think he stole those rounds. Fifth round I think Lobov did enough. Lobov won by unanimous decision, setting up the Paul Malignaggi fight. But to be honest, I would rather see these guys fight it back because it was close. I think I said even on Twitter that I would have been okay even with a draw because it was just that close to me. Now I know some people comment back that, you know, why would you want to see that it ran back because it was unanimous decision? I don't think it was. I really honestly think it was a draw just because it was so close. So that sets up the Lobov fight in June. Like I said, June, I think it's like 22nd. I believe it's up in the Boston area. Some other news that came out of the pay-per-view from David Feldman, the president. They're projected, and this is why I know this is the next big sport. They're projecting to have 18 events next year, 2020. And they're still hoping for one event this year over in England, which I would think would be cool as shit because that's where bare knuckle boxing started. Go back to the home grounds will be cool as shit. Another topic I want to talk about before we go is the whole Tj Dillashaw suspension thing. Now, I tried to defend him a couple weeks ago that, you know, maybe he wasn't educated enough and, you know, this is his first offense, people mess up, and this and that. Well, unfortunately, this asshole cheated. He admitted that he cheated, and he didn't only test positive once, he tested positive twice. Some of the notes I saw, he was suspended for 2 years, cannot fight until January 18th of 2021. Tested positive for EPO on December 28th of last year and January 18th of this year, which I believe was the fight with Henry Cujo. He was quoted to say, "People tell me I should just disappear and let this stuff die out for 2 years, but I don't think it's the way to handle this thing. I want to show my son when you make a mistake, face it face to face. Trust me, I'd love to run away and hide in a cave for 2 years." You know what? Dillashaw's 33 years old. People were talking about his legacy. EPO, from my understanding, is a steroid that's very hard to detect unless it's tested strictly for EPO. I just don't understand why. And he flat out came out and said, "I cheated. My coaches didn't know about it. My nutritionists, like anybody around me, didn't know about it." Why? I'd rather not win a championship, give it my all. Like Ross, I think it was there was a UFC fighter that's just retired this past week. I forget his name. Damn it. Ross Pearson, I believe it was. Never won a title, but I'll tell you what, his fights were entertaining. I'd rather have a career known that I was an entertainer fighter than have to take steroids to win a championship. Like this guy, I mean, he's not a kid no more, 33. By the time he's over the suspension, he's going to be 35. He may have one more year left of his prime years, if you want to call it that. But you're going to be gone for 2 years. It's going to take you another year. I mean, look at Brock Lesnar. Gone for 2 years, comes back, gets his ass kicked. A big dude like that. It's a shame that these guys that willingly know they're cheating think they could get away with it, and they never do. And I never liked Dillashaw for some reason. Something like he was very cocky to me. I think maybe that's why I didn't like him. And his former teammate Cody Garbrandt has been saying for roughly a year or so since he left Dillashaw's team that he's cheating, and he flat out called that he's taking this EPO. So, and the other thing too is that bothers me about this is he tested positive, but yet they won't go back and overturn any of those wins in the past year or two that he's been taking this drug. But yet in I know it's a different sport, NCAA will go back and take wins, take championships away from colleges that break rules. Cody Garbrandt fought Dillashaw, I believe, twice. Both times he got knocked out. Did the steroids have anything to do with it? Possibly. It makes you stronger. You can hit harder. You probably knock someone out a lot easier. I would wipe this guy's championships, these wins from the past 2 years away. Because I forget if it was Conor McGregor's coach or one of the other UFC fighters' coach. If they're suspending him for 2 years, it should go back 2 years as well. If they suspend for 1 year, it should go back for 1 year. Whatever matches he fought should be overturned. And unfortunately, it wasn't. Probably isn't going to be. And these fighters are just never going to learn, I guess. And it's a shame. Now, unfortunately for myself, I did not get a chance to watch the UFC fights from last weekend. And I guess I really missed some good fights. Poirier defeated Holloway for the interim lightweight championship. And I know I stated a few times that I don't like how UFC throws the words interim around, but for a guy that's 30 years old, been fighting since 2011, well deserved. he's another guy that actually I could respect and get behind, because after every fight, he actually auctions off his fight gear and gives it to charity. Whatever money he makes, he gives to charity. The other fight was Gastelum versus the new champ. Some of the clips I saw, man, the back elbows that the kid was throwing at Gastelum. And now he wants to fight John Jones, which, maybe back off a little bit there for a little bit, because I don't think anybody's touching John Jones. As much as I don't like him, he could have been the greatest if he wasn't testing positive left and right. He's always going to be tainted, I guess, in a way, you could say. But, so like I said, this was for the interim lightweight championship because Khabib Nurmagomedov is on suspension right now. And with this fight with Poirier winning, possibly sets up the unification bout with Khabib. Which, again, goes back, where does Conor go now? I know Conor's coach came out and said it seems like Conor has the fire relit underneath him, but I really don't think Conor wants to fight anymore. I think he just wants to keep his name relevant by trash talking a little bit with these UFC fighters, just to sell some more wine and whiskey and things like that. Now, Poirier versus Khabib, I actually think that could be a good fight. Yeah, I think that could be a good fight. If Max won, I just think Max is more suited to be a 145er. I don't think he's big enough to be a 155. And if you look at Poirier, I mean, he looks thick. He looks more like a 155er than a 145er. So I believe that fight won't happen until late fall, because I think Khabib is allowed back in November. So, we'll have to stick around and see how that goes for those two fighters. I'm not sure if Poirier is going to want to do another fight beforehand. But I believe that's going to be it for for tonight. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully with a special guest. We're going to have some hockey talk. NFL schedule was released last night. Chris Davis finally got hit, a home run. Tomorrow is going to be the big night for topics to talk about. So until then, this is your good friend Jimbo, signing out.